I'd like to welcome everybody that has just joined us. When we take a look back at the agenda so far today, we have covered Saudi Arabia. We then spent some time on impact, and we just had a great panel on value creation, and naturally that discussion on value creation led to AI. The impact of AI, it's discussed every single day in the news, in politics, and in business. Given the projections by pundits on the productivity and the scaling, we're incredibly fortunate this morning to hear Robert Smith's views on how AI will drive enterprise software innovation. Robert will be interviewed by the founder of Prosek Partners, Jennifer Prosek, so please join me in welcoming Robert and Jennifer to the stage. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. How are you?
Hi, everybody.
Good.
Great to see you. So we're going to bring the energy and talk about AI.
Great.
I am lucky enough to be with the rock star of software investing, Robert Smith, a pioneer, $100 billion firm he runs and founded 25 years ago, 90 portfolio companies, and technically the fourth largest software company in the world, if you take all the portfolio companies and put them together, behind Microsoft, SAP, Oracle. Crazy. Congratulations on your success.
Thank you. Labor of love.
Yeah.
Yeah, really enjoy it.
Robert Smith.
Thanks to all you all for your support. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just had your AGM.
Yeah.
I heard from your LPs. You did a great job, very succinctly and clearly explaining what AI is going to do in the software industry for your business and also for all of us. So could you give us that general speech, and then I'm going to ask you some specific questions.
All right, say take 25 years in a 3-hour presentation,
right.
Condense it down to 3.5 minutes.
You've got, the clock isn't running, guys.
That's okay,
right.
That means we can go forever.
Yeah, we can go forever.
I appreciate that. So I think the thing to understand is the impact of this new general purpose technology.
Yeah.
And it is changing everything, and you've heard this from, I'm sure, other investors. Our world in particular, there's some unique impacts that can be exponential in the growth or can be existential in terms of its outcome. The way I like to characterize it is enterprise software. Again, this is business software. Consumer software is a little different in the way that the LLMs are approaching and addressing those marketplaces in the hyperscalers in that context, and some of the call it applications providers. But in the enterprise, you will likely end up in 3 states. One state is agentic enterprise software companies, which have massive implications as to what the value creation dynamics are that they can bring to their customer base. Our average company today delivers about a 625% ROI of the products that we sell to our customers. We're seeing inflection points of multiples of that with an agentic solution. We'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we want to talk about the agents.
Yeah, we'll talk about that, the agents. Another state will be what I call 70 is the new 40.
Oh.
So many of you in the world of enterprise software are familiar with the rule of 40. It's a combination of growth rate and EBITDA margin, and a really good in a call it the past paradigm, well-run enterprise software company operate on this rule of 40. We are seeing the Gen AI enablement of enterprise software companies that lead to a rule of 70.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and the inflection dynamic comes across 2 vectors. One, of course, is the cost reduction in production.
Right.
Efficiency. Support, sales, efficiency of actually running businesses, and also inflecting the growth rates of these businesses. So the efficiency of go-to-market actually gets inflected as well. Certain of our companies like SalesLoft and others affect that. And companies like Gainsight, which we'll talk about in a minute, really affect the costs. And then some of our strategic partnerships with some of the folks like in Anthropic and OpenAI give us the ability to deliver the cost of our code at a fraction of what it was even 2 years ago.
Sure.
So those 2 vectors is the end state for the most part, hopefully, of most enterprise software companies. But there's a 3rd state, which means you don't have a right to exist.
I was going to say, that sounds like the death state.
It
death
is.
star.
And you will see that. If you are a enterprise software company that is really content aggregation, you actually don't really have a right to exist unless you innovate on some of the products or solutions utilizing some of Gen AI, which you actually can create And it's important to have sovereignty and dominion around workflows and data sets in order for this all to work and to have a right to exist in the future in this environment.
Okay.
So that's what the end state ultimately ends up in enterprise software. Now, how you get there is really the question that you have to pose software companies, GPs that own software companies, and what is the process by which they get there?
Okay, so Satya Nadella made a cameo at your AGM and called out one of your portfolio companies called Gainsight.
Right.
Tell us, just because Gainsight gives us a real case study on what is possible,
Yeah.
tell us about why he was excited about Gainsight.
So one of the things we did effectively, I'll call it, over the last 25 years is build systemic solutions at scale to transform enterprise software companies. You know, everyone talks about Vista Playbook, and a lot of that is how do you actually bring efficiency to running enterprise software companies,
Yep.
which helped us pioneer and define what I call rule of 40
Yeah.
businesses. We then got introduced to a new technology, which was called the cloud. And I called this young man by the name of Andy Jassy way back when, and I said, hey, he said he had this compute capability. Can we utilize this to start migrating some of our businesses? We started a strategic relationship with him, and we ended up migrating more companies from on-prem to cloud, building a factory approach in doing so. Well, we, of course, with the introduction of AI, said we need to build a factory to go from cloud to agentic. So as we were building this factory, Satya called, said, hey, here you're building another one of these factories. We want to be the foundry to that factory. So one of the first companies we put through this now, which was announced in his Build conference 2 weeks ago, was Gainsight. And the aspects, it is not as trivial as some will tell you, but how you actually build agentic solutions. You have agents who actually affect specific tasks. That are enabling your customers and your users to accomplish their goals or their business or their work. You know, I call it an information worker. What you and I do is we take information out of systems or data or people, we process that, reason it, and then deliver it back to another system or another person that goes into another system. That's a process. And as you break those down and say, okay, can I create specific agents to do those tasks at a higher efficiency, a higher rate, higher frequency, that is what an agentic solution can ultimately do.
But how many agents can you have running around, and how does that work? Is that like unorganized?
So you have to have agent administrators as well.
Okay.
And orchestration agents.
Okay.
But there's also a group, which is part of why we partnered with them in building out this factory.
Okay.
I call them administrative agents, and these are agents that do everything from telephony to manage, elements of what is the value that's created, are monitoring these agents, and as a user, you actually create a surface area of attack as it relates to cybersecurity, right?
Yeah.
If you create and replicate agents, you've actually increased the surface area of attack.
Totally.
Right? So you have to build a whole administrative package of agents to monitor, the work agents that are actually doing the work. So today, we're thinking we're about 12 to 15 times the number of agents per user. So across our enterprise, we have 750 million users of our software globally, which translates to over 10 billion agents as they become agentic.
That's incredible.
Which is amazing in terms of the productivity, kind of point one, but point two, it actually creates a load opportunity to put on the hyperscaler environments because these agents consume inference. Okay, and as they consume that inference, you now have the ability to track, maintain, and capture value from the inference that, we got $1.8 trillion of inference capability being built out in the marketplace. And our ability to now capture that value as part of our motion is also exciting to us and to our investors. So that's how we're approaching it.
Make the argument, why will software benefit from this whole situation? And why will software be the orchestrator of this situation and all these agents?
Yeah,
and by the way, how many agents is everyone in the audience going to have?
It depends on your work.
I'm complicated. How many agents do I need?
It depends on all the work. For me, I've got one main agent that.
We're going to talk about your agent.
Okay, we'll talk about that. But to help me with my work, but there are sub-agents. So if you want to start
counting. Does anyone have an agent yet? Raise your hand. Oh.
1, 2. Okay, these are the most productive people in the room.
Incredible. Congratulations.
Right?
That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, the agentic, my agent, it's really, you got to think about it becomes a part of your persona. And if you use it properly, it informs you on all of the aspects of your day.
Let's wait for your agent. Okay. But make me the argument on software. Why is software? Because you said AI is going to feed software.
Yeah, it will. So again, if you have sovereignty and dominion around workflows and data sets, then you can actually create agents that actually create a hyper-efficient environment. They work
Okay.
24/7, 365, and if you manage them, I'll call it properly.
Scary and exciting at the same time.
At the same time, they
Yeah.
become much more efficient. You know, if you look at like Gainsight, for instance, you think about it as a customer service agent, okay,
Yeah.
an agent system. And to give you an example, one of our agents out of that model actually is just constantly surveying LinkedIn, constantly, 24/7,
Yeah.
365.
I love that application.
Someone changes a job, okay? Does that job that they move to impact one of your companies? Okay, we call it a buffer, okay?
Yeah.
And that person, oh, by the way, they manage this set of accounts for us. It kicks off and it says now, another agent now creates, okay, put together a summary of what that relationship is, what has happened. Oh, by the way, put together a summary of where, pulling off of Slack channels and WhatsApp.
Incredible.
What is the current state of the relationship? So not just, oh, we have a contract. No, what is actually the current
Right.
state in the communications? Put to another summary. How are they performing versus outside companies? So you can do comparative analysis and then put together I'll call it an avatar in the face of the customer service rep that puts that all together in a presentation that now gets delivered to that person who just got that job. Hey, welcome to this new job. We have a relationship with you. This works today.
I saw it. If you can, is that video public, by the way, for Gainsite?
No, not really. I mean, but.
It's a really great video. I wish we could have shown it because it shows how this works. And as someone who runs a client business,
Great.
I looked at that and I said, this is transformational.
Jen, things like wealth management can use this. For customer,
incredible.
almost any customer service environment will now be able to make their customer service people hyper productive.
And the avatar that was served up in the video to the new client was very realistic and very customized. And like you said, it wasn't just like a quick, hello, welcome to the new job. It was an analysis for the new client of what was going on. So there was like a value add to it.
Absolutely, and it says, oh, and here's some areas we need to focus on, and the avatar actually is the customer service agents, the person themselves, and we just take that, and now they can talk through it and kind of spoof through it.
It's incredible. I'm sure they have a website. It's
Yeah.
worth looking at.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
it really gives you a specific idea of what is possible on the exciting end, because for me, it's going to make my life, I'm probably going to become a customer by
Well,
the
I'm sure, but
Yeah.
prices are going up, just telling you now.
Okay, all right. I have an inside track. That doesn't
Right.
matter?
No.
Okay, no.
I got investors to feed,
Yeah, exactly. So let's go to your agent. So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
preparing for this, you used your own agent. You call your agent Q?
Yeah, of course.
That's cute.
James Bond, Q,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You guys got that? Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah,
All right, tell us about Q.
Yeah, so Q, it's been an interesting journey with Q, because the first instance was, if I'm going to have a presentation with an investor, okay, what is all the information about that investor that I need? So you think about it, there's a bunch of databases we now have to tap. Okay, where have we what funds are they in? What are the returns? What are the DPIs? All those sorts of things that they'd be just cash flow statements, what's on the horizon, all that sort of stuff. And then what are the questions that they have asked? Okay, what have they asked my IR team? Okay,
Right.
what are the things they've been asking them? And filter that in. What should they be asking that they haven't asked? Okay, so from that, every time I'm walking into a meeting, I can just kind of fire up Q and pull together information.
Amazing.
Now, in order to do that, there's a massive amount of data hygiene that has to happen.
I was going
across
to
an
ask you,
organization.
that sounds great, but what do you have to do to make that work?
So it's just as preparing and building this factory that we've done now with Microsoft.
Yeah.
It is the first thing you have to go through factory preparation. So every one of our portfolio companies is going through factory prep.
Okay.
Most of them are done now because we've been working on this for
So they've been through stage one, most of them.
Yeah, so you got and you know what you have to do in terms of building out what I call the data
I still
constructs and the
need
data
factory
hygiene. There's a lot of work, and depending upon
preparation.
how big your organization is,
Yeah.
the different databases, and you have to have the right permissionings. So agents can be a little odd because
Yeah.
if you and I are agents, this is interesting.
We're odd.
No, but you and I are agents.
Yeah.
Okay, I may have a different permission than you, and you may say, I need to prepare this work. That's
Sure.
part of my work. I need permission.
get
And me as an
access.
agent, I look at it and
Yeah.
say, oh, yeah, well, you're one of my agents. Sure, give you permission.
Right.
That's a bad thing.
Okay.
Okay, so that's why administrative agents have to have the right kind of construct to ensure that you're not doing things you're not supposed to do or accessing data that you're not permissioned to access.
That sounds
So it's
scary.
non-trivial.
Yeah.
And so you actually have to build it at a level where it is highly effective, but you actually have the right teams to work on, which is why we work with the senior teams at
Right.
in Anthropic and OpenAI and Microsoft and all those.
So step one, obviously, is this hygiene. Take me through the other steps.
So then you have to define what's the use case. What are the requirements of the use? How do you want to use it?
Right.
So in this context, one of it is, if I'm going to go give a presentation,
Right.
we say, okay, Jen, what are the 10 questions you want to ask Robert?
Okay.
Okay, so we'll take those 10 questions, but the data hygiene
All
says,
10 were taken off the table. Just kidding.
no, I know they weren't. And then what we do is we put together all the presentations that I've done, we've done, all the AGM, all that sits in that database
Right.
and says, here are the bullet points of how you would answer the question in your words.
Right.
Okay. And then here's, if you wanted something written, it will actually write it out in my words. And that's, 14 seconds as opposed to days, weeks of preparation by a team of people.
Totally.
And it constantly, like all things, it constantly evolves. I built my agent in a way so that I can actually add different LLMs over time, because as new releases come, certain ones are a little more efficient in terms of how the utilization of the data feeds into the environment. So there's different constructs,
Yep.
but that's a construct for Robert's going to make a presentation
Yeah.
and be interviewed. And then
Yep.
there's a construct for if I'm going to sit with investors and talk about returns and what they're
Right.
invested in and what they should be invested, different constructs. And those are two separate databases that my agent calls from.
Okay.
So that's how we do it.
Given what you know and what you've seen, I mean, you're a lot deeper in AI than most of us, me, of course, most of the audience. What should we be thinking about? Where in our lifetime will what will AI not be able to do? And where does the human continue to become the most important?
That's a hard question.
Sorry.
Yeah. I don't know where it's not going to be important.
Wow.
It truly is it's like electricity. It really is a general purpose technology that will change everything.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing it change everything in our little world in some respects, which is pretty big.
Your
And
big little world.
our big little world, and the implications of it across, because of the nature of how we serve our markets, we're in almost every industry.
Yeah.
Okay, from shipping to insurance to education and I see the impacts as being
Everywhere.
profound in
Yeah.
almost every one, from scenario planning and shipping based on tariffs,
Yeah.
right, which we can now do with one of
Yeah.
our companies. So you think about it, one of the things we were able to do is deliver this capability to the smallest of
incredible.
enterprise software companies
Yeah.
to the largest, like the Avalars of
Yeah.
the world and the cloud software groups of the world, right? And so building a factory and an infrastructure to transform these businesses into the next generation of agentic is going to be a massive economic opportunity for us at Vista and our investors.
Yeah.
So that's kind of point one. But I do
sure.
not see an area that isn't affected outside of luthiers who actually make violins handmade. So, but that's,
Oh, wow.
yeah, anyway, that's.
That's very specific.
Well, I say
Good
that
for
'cause it's just-
them.
I'm just at an event at Carnegie Hall. I was like,
Okay.
man, what's not
Oh, all right.
making violins?
That makes
it'd probably
sense.
be okay, right?
Okay.
Until robots do it better. But anyway, so even there, I'm
And
not
how
sure.
fast? Like, it seems like this is moving incredibly fast. In the next 3 to 5 years, do we already expect like a massive adoption, disruption, change in everything we do, change in the workforce, change in efficiency?
I think a year and a half, 2.5, 3.5 years from now, there will be a massive transformation that occurs in the enterprise
Yeah.
in particular. In consumer, you feel it, and some of you, and it's interesting, you had 2 people raise their hands.
Yeah. Should it be
That
2
use
people or
agents.
should it be?
No.
No.
Okay, next year, you should ask that question, and if 40% of the people haven't raised their hands, the 60% who didn't raise their hands won't be here the following year.
Yeah. Ooh. Oh my goodness.
No, it's that level of productivity,
Wow.
call it 2 and 3 years
That
from
answers
now.
the question.
So, I mean, I'm seeing the head shakes, the guys who are using their, they're like, oh, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
If I didn't have my agent, I
We
couldn't
should
do
have a
1/10
booth
no matter
like
what.
selling agents because we all
working on that.
need it.
We're working
Yeah,
on it.
exactly.
Yeah, we
Oh,
sell them
okay.
through our company.
I
So,
love it. Yeah,
but
of
no,
course.
agents for, so the implications are massive.
Yeah.
What society does with them is a whole different thing. I tell people that's kind of above my pay grade.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not sure how the policymakers are going to handle some of this, because there's going to be some massive disruption in certain industries. The way I characterize it, there's about 1 billion knowledge workers on the planet today,
Yeah.
which make up about $40 trillion of, call it benefit, spend and salaries and all that sort of. All of those jobs will change. I'm not saying they'll all go away, but at some point in time, they will all change. Some are changing as we sit here and speak today.
Right.
And I'm seeing them change in our own companies. 2 years from now, 3 years from now, all of those jobs will be impacted by this dramatically. You're going to have hyper-productive people in the organization, and you're going to have people who will need to find other things to do.
If you run a business, I was surprised to hear this. I asked someone at Vista on your team, have you built your own LLM, or are you using what's already available?
Yeah.
And tell everybody what you said, but it was interesting as a business owner because it made me wonder, how far ahead should you be building on your own? Or should you just be buying great software that's going to have this stuff embedded?
I think the enterprise world, this is where it kind of gets into AI fields, it will be ultimately how most of these LLMs, call it agents, are delivered into enterprises, because I rather doubt that people are going to take a random agent and put it into their environment, irrespective of what the AGI state is.
Yeah.
And say, now go update these databases and make these changes, because might get $81 trillion of money transferred when it shouldn't, right? Not to say that's why it happened, but I think there's going to be those states of protection, and people are saying, I want certified agents that work in my environment, that know the workflows, that actually have understand my compliance, my regulation, all those sorts of things, which the enterprise software vendors have by their very state because of the workflows and data constructs. If they protected that the right way, which they have been, which gives them the right to serve those customers, that will be the environment in which these agents live. Virtual machine environments like in the CSG will provide some of that housing for that to occur. With that said, in certain businesses, you can use agents if it isn't, I'll call it, if a 95.5% call it success rate is okay. If you and I decide, hey, let's go have a Thai food dinner tonight in Berlin, we can go send some agents out to find and book the restaurants, and 95.5% of the time.
We're not worried about that.
Yeah, the restaurant will be there and be in existence. And
we'll be happy.
And 0.5% of the time we'll show up, the restaurant's been closed for 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but that doesn't work in an enterprise in terms of, mission critical business.
That can't happen.
You need 100% precision in that regard. So I think that will be the state that enables enterprise software companies right to win, right to deliver certified agents into the enterprise for quite some time. Okay. So that's why I'm optimistic and excited about the work that we're in.
My last question.
Yeah.
You're a dad.
Yeah.
You've got some kids that are going to be hitting the workforce relatively soon.
Right. I hope really soon.
What do you tell them about what is important? What career advice do you give them?
3 or 4 areas. I always give them kind of just 3 major things, but I'll tell you the adjunct. The most important thing I always tell them is, discover the joy of figuring things out. That's a very important thing for them, which means engage consciously, deliberately, and intentionally on utilizing agents for the work that you do. 2 of my daughters are writers. Okay. And so now, and of course, a year ago, oh, Dad, how could you use AI? And then one of them writes for Marvel, and one of them is doing her own thing and some writing. And now, of course, they're understanding the utility of using these agents. And now from, Dad, that makes no sense, to, wow, Dad, have you seen this, right? So we're getting to that state. And the other thing that I tell them that you are enough. So irrespective of what these technology and tools, you have unique capability to deliver some unique aspects and perspectives and views on the world. You have to figure out how to define that. I got the third thing I always tell them is love is all that matters in that context. And the fourth thing now is get off Dad's payroll. So I think those are the way I really approach and advice I give them.
That's amazing. Thank you, Robert Smith,
Jen,
and thank you all for coming.
Thank you all.